Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for the remake of A Star is Born. And what A Star is Born is essentially about is we center on the character of Jackson Maine. He is a very successful country artist, but he also does have a very long-term battle with alcoholism and substance abuse. And eventually, when he is doing his regular thing, heavily drinking, he comes across this singer named Allie, who is performing at this bar, and he eventually coerces her into possibly becoming a full-time artist, and very quickly they start to form a romance. But as the film goes on and Jackson's health starts to deteriorate, the big question is, can these two really survive as Allie's career continues to flourish? And that's really all I'm going to say. So, A Star is Born, overall, I was absolutely hyped for this film. I mean, obviously, yes, it is the fourth iteration of the story, but knowing the talent behind it and knowing, how, especially for Lady Gaga, knowing how special of a film it was for her, that was something I was very interested in, especially when those rave reviews started pouring out. That's really when I started to get even more hyped than I already was. I mean, I love the marketing, but the rave reviews is what made me even more excited for this film. And with a film this high of a consensus and so many people flooding the reviews and saying that it's incredible and saying that at points it rivals, the Garland one, which seems like in impossible thing to do. There's a lot of ways this film could have disappointed me, but to be honest with you guys, it really didn't at all. Believe the hype here, guys, because A Star is Born is phenomenal. This is everything I want in a remake of this kind. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And I will say right now, the cast in this film is easily some of the best of the entire year. I mean, there are so many great performances here. Let's first talk about Bradley Cooper in this movie, because holy shit, Bradley Cooper. I mean, look, I really have loved him as an actor before. I think he's done some really great stuff, but this is without a doubt his most impressive role to date, and maybe his best. I mean, he just completely transforms into this character of Jackson Maine. And sure, you could say that with Rocket Raccoon, but you still got that charismatic side of him. With Jackson Maine, he's lost. He just transforms himself into this character, and you don't for once see Cooper on screen, and they do a very good job of getting you behind Jackson. You see Maine is someone who, yes, he is very troubled, and yes, he does have a lot of battles, like I said, with his, own personal demons, but at the same time, you can see why he's very charming. You really do root for this character. You want him to overcome it, and this is easily the most depth we have ever had to this character in any of the iterations of A Star is Born there's been, and honestly, thank God for that, because Cooper just brings something to this role that hasn't been there in the other films, and I really loved what he was able to do here. If he does not, at the very least, get nominated for Best Actor, I will be enraged, because I truly do think this proves that he's one of the best working today. I mean, I've always loved Bradley Cooper, but this was next level for me, and I really hope that the Academy does recognize it, because he did some phenomenal work here. But honestly, as good as Cooper is here, the same really does go for Lady Gaga. I really can't say who's better or worse. I think these two really are on equal footing, but Lady Gaga for sure, I think, is the more impressive performance, because sure, we've seen her in things like American Horror Story, but this is really her first serious role, and it is astounding how amazing she is in this film. I mean, you would think she's been acting for years, and technically she has, just in really small projects, and you really do see her put her full effort into this project. Sure, Allie is someone that we've seen before, where she's kind of the innocent star that doesn't really, she hasn't really been recognized for her talent and doesn't really see the true, she has this passion, but she doesn't really see the true talent that she has. And, sure, we have seen that character, but what Gaga really brings to this role is this level of pathos. You really do feel everything that Allie is saying. When Allie is feeling upset, you're upset. When Allie is feeling optimistic, you're feeling optimistic. And I really loved what they were able to do, what Gaga was able to do with this character. She has some scenes in the third act of this movie especially that, multiple scenes, mind you, that just scream Oscar consideration. I'm not just saying Oscar, man. Like, this is Oscar consideration. If she does not, she will absolutely be winning Best Actress. Everyone has been saying it, but honestly, I really can't see another choice after this role. It's easily one of the best female performances of the entire year. I think she did a fantastic job in this film, and the chemistry between these two just feels so natural, and that's because it is. The level of trust that Cooper and Gaga put into each other is just beautiful here, and it's very well echoed into their roles in the film. The chemistry that Jackson and Allie have just feels so real. You feel like these two did date in real life, and it's the perfect example of two actors working to their fullest potential, and I was just so impressed with what I saw here. Maybe the best movie chemistry between actors, between a romantic couple at least, that I have seen on screen all year. It really was that good. You honestly forget that this is, like I said, a movie romance. You really do feel like these two are real people, and they did such a fantastic job just completely transforming into these characters. As far as the rest of the cast here, I think everyone really did do a phenomenal job. Sam Elliott was so good here as Jackson's brother. What I really loved about his character is that he could have easily been very cartoony, but you really do get the sense, the relationship that these two really do have. And again, it's one of those things that the original, the iterations of the story just haven't really had before, and it gives you this tie to Jackson's character that just wasn't really there. And I really love what Elliott was able to do in this film. He has one scene in this movie that honestly could maybe get him that Best Supporting Actor nomination. I don't know if he's going to get there, but there is one scene here that very well could get him that, and I think he did a great job. Andrew Dice Clay, I also really loved in this movie. He has some fantastic scenes here. He is a bit of a comic relief, but he also does a very good job in this film. Anthony Ramos was very good. Dave Chappelle. Really, everyone does a phenomenal job here. Even some of the smaller players I really thought were so great here, and I think everyone did a fantastic job in this film. But now, I really do want to talk about the directing and the writing, but especially the directing here, because sure, the film is directed by Bradley Cooper, and we've had a lot of directorial debuts, but this is easily, I think, one of the best, because sure, you think Cooper was someone who was chosen, you're like, oh, that kind of seems like a first choice, and yeah, it actually wasn't. Like, this film was in development hell for a very long time, and Cooper was brought on, and thank God for that, because I really can't see what this film would have been without him behind and in front of the camera, because where has he been hiding, honestly? That's really what I want to know. Where has Cooper been hiding as a director? Because he absolutely nails it here. I loved what he did in this film, directing-wise, because sure, the film is very bleak and very realistic, but he always has those doses of comedy. He always has those doses of fun, and he just does a very good job with directing this film. I think it was very meticulously directed. Cooper had a very good understanding of what he wanted this movie to be. You know, he knew who he wanted to cast, he knew what style he wanted to have, and I really loved what he was able to do with this film. He was somehow able to take a movie that is over decades old, mind you. The first iteration of this movie came out back in the 30s, so it is very old, and yet somehow he was able to make it new and fresh, and I truly don't know how he was able to pull it off, but kudos to him, honestly, because he just did such a great job, like I said, making this feel like his vision. Nothing about this feels like it was borrowing from the source material. Sure, it is faithful to the source material, but it does enough to make itself feel different, and that really does go into the writing here, because, again, a lot of people are going to say, oh, we've seen this story done before, you know, boy meets girl, and girls sing at a bar, and he tries to turn her into this celebrity, and eventually their relationship goes downhill and things like that. And sure, we've seen that, but what this film is able to do, again, is make that idea feel fresh. And that's especially true when it comes to the character of Jackson, because in all the other previous iterations, Norman has been categorized as someone who he's very much helpless, and he's someone who, from the beginning of the film, he already is a wreck. He already is someone that is very unlikable in that sense. We never really get that window into his life that we do in this film, and by getting that here, we're not only able to sympathize with Jackson, but we really do understand why he would resort to these really awful behaviors and why he really would do these things. And I thought it was just such brilliant writing. There's actually a very good reason for why Jackson is this way, and it's not trying to say, oh, you know, alcohol and drug use, like, that's definitely a good, like, it's not trying to glorify what he's doing, it's just giving you a very good understanding, and I really loved the way that they did that here. I thought it was just such a great addition to this character, because again, we haven't really had that before in any of these films, and it just added this level of care, and this level, I think, of you know, it added this level of care, but also added this level of emotion that wasn't there in the other films, and that's something I really loved about this version overall. But that's also the same for Allie. A lot of people have said, oh, the film only focuses on Jackson, and it really does focus a lot on both of them. We get the sense that Allie is someone who, sure, she is a singer, and she's very talented, but she hasn't really ever been recognized for it. And you can see her father has always been, you know, cheering her on. He's always wanted her to do well, but she's just never really received that talent that, you know, receive that recognition that she really does sought out, and Jackson is really the first person to see that. And once these two do meet, that's really when the film does get cooking, and you really do get a glimpse into how similar these two really are. Like, sure, obviously they're very different people, but they do have very similar circumstances, and I really loved getting into that. I think the film just did a very good job with spending a lot more time on getting to know these characters than the other iterations have, and I was very impressed by that. I couldn't believe how much thought and depth was put into these characters, but I really loved it overall. The film also has a lot to say about the state of Hollywood today and the industry overall for both Jackson and Allie. For Jackson, this is translating to how big of a celebrity he really is. I mean, Jackson rarely, especially in the beginning of the movie, rarely is there a moment where he can be alone and there aren't hordes of people outside his window or hordes of people constantly getting in his way. And you can see throughout the movie, he doesn't really like the fact that he's a celebrity. He doesn't like to look at himself as someone who's famous. You know, he wishes that he could just be himself. He wishes that he could just isolate himself from that. And I thought that was a very realistic portrayal of what they did here. There's a fantastic scene where they're playing the song on the radio of his, and he's actually not pleased about it, and I loved what they were able to do. They could have easily made him this very arrogant guy, but they didn't go with that characterization, and it's so different from what we normally see from these type of characters that it just felt very refreshing, and I really love that a lot. And with Allie, they also do this very well, because eventually, I don't think this is really a spoiler, Allie does become very famous, to the point where she eventually does start to distance herself from Jackson, and where they end up taking Allie, it felt very realistic. It felt like a very good commentary on, you know, a rising star in the music business, and also a very good social commentary on Gaga's life. A lot of this film, it feels very personal for her, and you can tell why this project was so important for her, because there are parts in the movie where you can tell she is alluding to her personal life, and it's not the most flattering portrayal. She doesn't really act like she enjoys who she really is now, and it's actually very interesting to watch, and I really loved what they were able to do with both of these characters. They really do go on this crazy journey, and I really loved, again, the social commentary that was there. Again, that was something that sure was in the other films, but this film just really focused on it a lot more, and I really loved that a lot here. But the film is also very devastating. I mean, you know from the second that these two meet, obviously with what Jackson's going through, you know eventually the downfall of their relationship is coming, and when it eventually does happen, because of how well the film does set it up, which for a while is a lot of fun, and you really do root for these two, you know eventually what is going to happen. You know eventually that these two are going to go through some difficulties in their relationship, and it's really devastating to watch. And the film does such an excellent job of not glossing over these issues that they have. They are very prevalent. They are very much, you know, compromising their overall relationship, and I really loved how, you know, how well this film was able to really dive into that, especially in 2018. There's a lot more stuff you can do with that concept that you really couldn't do back in the 70s, the 30s, or the 50s, and they really did that here, and I think it really did elevate the film overall for me. The cinematography here is also really great. The film really does pop very well, especially in concert scenes and things like that. But what I really want to talk about in this film is the sound design, which is an aspect of filmmaking I don't touch upon a lot. You know, I'll talk about the score, but the sound design especially, I thought was extraordinary here. It's some of the best I've seen all year. I mean, there's a lot of motifs that Cooper actually puts in here that I thought were really cool. And not just in the concert scenes, because let me just tell you, the concert scenes are incredible. You're going to feel like you're at a concert. You're going to feel like you're right there. See this in a packed house because you really do get that full experience. And that doesn't mean that the film feels like you're watching a concert. It's just when the scenes are going on, you really do feel like you're right there. And I thought it was just really great the way they were able to do that. Very, very good sound design there. But particularly what they do with Jackson, because this character does in fact have tendinitis. So there are points in the movie where almost every time he gets up on stage, you hear this really high-pitched ringing noise, and it was just a very good glimpse into someone who is on that spectrum, someone who is in Jackson's position, and I love that. I loved the way they were able to do that. I thought it was such a great motif, and again, it really did give us a very good look into what Jackson has had to go through and what he really does have to deal with pretty much every time he does take the stage, and I really love that a lot. But going back to the cinematography, they also do the same thing with Jackson, who, like I said, he frequently has a lot of, you know, scenes where he does have tendinitis, and a lot of the times where, like, he's drunk or something like that, the screen will go very blurry, and you kind of see the way that Jackson is viewing things, and it was just, it's the perfect example of, I think, just brilliant filmmaking. It's masterful, masterfully done, honestly. I really can't put into words the way they're able to do that, but they really give you this window into his psyche that, again, we just haven't really had in other iterations of the story, and I really love what they were able to do there. The soundtrack here, though, is so good. I love the music in this movie. Not just Shallow, because obviously Shallow, it's a big hit. Everyone's going to be singing it as they leave the theater, for sure. I truly do think every song in this movie really does stick out. And if you're not a fan of country music, not every song in here is country. In fact, towards the latter portion, there starts to be less and less of it. And I will admit, as much as I do love Shallow, the song that Gaga sings at the end of this movie, I think honestly might possibly rival that. It might honestly rival Shallow, which again is a great song, but the song at the very end that Gaga does sing is probably one of the most emotional endings I've seen all year, and just for that alone, I think this song at least should be nominated for Best Original Song, because it is absolutely extraordinary, and it's definitely one of the best things about this film for sure. Also, I will say that as much as I do love, like I said, the other songs in this movie, Shallow is definitely going to be, I think, the scene of this movie that everyone talks about years from now. I think we're definitely going to be seeing the Shallow scene, most likely on, like, best scenes of the decade list, for sure. It is truly an incredible moment. It's very poignant. It really does move the story forward in a big way, and it really does feel like an event. It feels like this big moment, and it's build up so well in the beginning of the movie that the payoff is so great, and I really loved what they were able to do with that. Now, I will say, as much as I do love this film, which, trust me, I really do love it a lot, and I think you guys really do need to go see it, there are a few things here and there that do hold the film back just a bit, not a ton, but just a little bit for me, and they're very small. Like, these are very small nitpicks here and there. I will admit, the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie did feel a little bit rushed, especially with the introduction. It doesn't take these two very long to meet, and as good as the setup was, which it really is great, you get a very good look into who Jackson and Allie were. I think we just need a little bit more time fleshing these two out, and then they could have met, and I just wish they could have maybe added just a little bit more to, you know, them pre-interaction. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more there. And as much as I do like Dave Chappelle in this movie, he really is not in the movie a lot. I liked what he was in. Like, his scene is definitely very good, but I kept hoping that he was going to pop up again. He only pops up in really one sequence in this movie, and I kept hoping he would show up at the end, but it just didn't happen, and I do see the point of him. He's a very good character, and I like what they did, but I just need a little bit more with him. Other than that, this film is fantastic. It's very well paced for the most part. It's a film that honestly doesn't feel like 2.5 hours at all. I was into it pretty much the entire time. It has pretty much everything you really want in... Ultimately, A Star is Born is just everything I really want in a great remake. It does enough, I think, to stay faithful to the source material, but also does a lot to make it feel fresh and original. And there are points in this movie where it honestly does rival even the Garland cut, and I adore the Garland cut to this movie. You guys know how much I adore Judy Garland. She's my favorite actress of all time for a very good reason, but the film does do a lot that original did not do. And I don't know if I could say this film is, you know, did the definitive Star is Born, you know, adaptation. I don't know if this is the one. However, I do think this is going to be the one that a lot of people do go back to, and for good reason. It's a very good story that we have seen done before, but does enough, like I said, to make it feel original and make you feel invested in the story. It has two of the best performances of the year from Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. Those two better be winning, hopefully at least be nominated at the Oscars. I'll be honestly really shocked, especially if Gaga's not nominated with all the hype behind her performance. The musical performances are fantastic. The editing is great. The movie is very engrossing. It has a lot to say about the music industry overall. It tells a much different story than what you've seen, and it is definitely hard to watch at points, but overall, it's really everything you could want in a really great movie, and I really do think I've said enough, guys. I think I've said enough to really convert you over to this film. It is really everything that I possibly could have hoped for, minus those really two complaints, which honestly aren't even that big of a deal. This is easily one of the best movies I have seen all year, and I am without a doubt going to give A Star is Born an A. It feels so good to finally see a great movie in theaters again. Guys, please support this one. It has been far too long since I actually saw something even close to this in theaters. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Left your thoughts. And so check out the Jack podcast that's going to be happening on Sunday, because we're going to be reviewing the other 3 versions of A Star is Born on there. So if you guys want my thoughts on the other 3 adaptations in this, Star is Born, I guess, series franchise. It's not really a franchise, but I guess it's a series because there's been 4 different adaptations. If you want to hear my thoughts on the other iterations, check it out over there, because I am going to give my thoughts on the other 3, as well as this one, of course. But let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.